Another evening draws in, Holmes. The fire crackles merrily, a welcome sound indeed after all these years. It feels rather fitting, settling in like this to discuss a case that still sends a slight shiver down my spine, even now.
Ah, the Harcourt affair. A shiver, Watson, merely a fascinating confluence of mechanics and malice, though I grant you the circumstances were singular.
Singular is one word for it. Writing the account, which I titled The Adventure of the Mechanical Manservant, proved quite the challenge. It was difficult to convey the sheer strangeness of it all, which makes it all the more valuable to have our guest with us this evening. Inspector Hardcastle, it truly is a pleasure to welcome you back to Baker Street. Your presence during that investigation was invaluable, and your perspective from within Scotland Yard, particularly given your unique position at the time, offers insights I could only guess at in my chronicle.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Mr. Holmes, it's good to be here. The Harcourt case, yes, that one certainly caused ripples at the Yard. It wasn't every day we were called to investigate a potential murder seemingly committed by clockwork.
Precisely, a puzzle box wrapped in an enigma presented within a locked room. It demanded a certain flexibility of thought, wouldn't you agree, Inspector?
Flexibility was certainly required, Mr. Holmes, both at the scene and back within the somewhat more rigid confines of Scotland Yard procedure. A memorable case indeed.
I remember the day you brought us the particulars, Inspector Hardcastle. A truly baffling summons, even by Holmes's standards. It felt as though you carried the weight of something utterly unprecedented into our sitting room.
Wait indeed, Dr. Watson. Sir Reginald Harcourt, a man of considerable standing, found strangled. In his study, mind you, bolted securely from the inside. No broken windows, no secret panels, the very definition of an impossible crime.
Except for the companion inspector, the silent witness.
Precisely, Mr. Holmes, the mechanical manservant, Professor Fleming's creation, standing there quite impassive amidst the scene. You can imagine the difficulties this presented back at the Yard. A locked room mystery is one thing. A locked room with an automaton. Well, it tested the limits of procedure and certainly strained credulity amongst my colleagues.
Their skepticism was predictable, but for me, the very novelty was the allure. A technical puzzle interwoven with a capital crime, it presented a challenge of the highest order, demanding a unique intersection of observation and mechanical understanding.
My own reaction, I confess, was one of profound disbelief when you first laid out the facts, Inspector, and later visiting the Harcourt mansion. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating. Standing in that silent study, with the unfortunate Sir Reginald's presence still palpable, and that figure watching impassively. It was deeply unsettling, truly uncanny.
Uncanny and a nightmare for evidence gathering. How does one interview a machine? What protocols apply? It wasn't merely skepticism I faced, but genuine procedural paralysis, being perceived as perhaps too forward-thinking. In embracing such an outlandish scenario, didn't exactly smooth the path within the institution.
Yet the initial reports, even yours, Inspector, spoke of the machine's remarkable construction. Not some clumsy clockwork toy, but something possessing a certain refinement.
Undeniably sophisticated for its time, Mr. Holmes. Its movements, its very posture suggested advanced design, which of course only deepened the mystery. Was its complexity sufficient for involvement? Could it perceive, record, act? These were the immediate, troubling questions swirling around that silent, metallic form, long before we could even guess at the truth.
Troubling questions, indeed. Ones that set the stage for one of the most intellectually demanding cases Holmes ever undertook. Beyond the immediate shock of the scene, Holmes, one couldn't help but consider the mind behind the machine, Professor Fleming. A man of undeniable genius, certainly.
Genius, Watson, is often a blinding light. Fleming's intellect was remarkable, yet one sensed a precipitous rush in his creation, perhaps neglecting the profound ethical questions raised by such an automaton. Progress for its own sake can tread dangerous ground.
Indeed, and the public reaction reflected that ambiguity. There was widespread fascination, of course. The newspapers were filled with speculation, but beneath it lay a palpable current of fear. What had science wrought? Conveying that peculiar tension, that mix of awe and unease, proved a considerable challenge in my chronicle.
A challenge mirrored at Scotland Yard, Doctor. We were grappling not only with public sentiment, but with the practicalities of investigation. Criminals, regrettably, often embrace novelty faster than the law. We were already seeing technologically aided offenses. The papers dubbed some the Clockwork Gang, though their methods were crude compared to Fleming's potential. Keeping pace was and remains a constant struggle. Yet amidst all the gears and circuits, the human element remained stubbornly central. One observed the composure, shall we say, of Lady Beatrice, her keen interest in the proceedings. And the palpable conflict within Professor Fleming himself spoke volumes of desperation, perhaps, or ambition thwarted. These are timeless drivers.
It makes one wonder, Inspector, if the very strangeness of the mechanical man served as a distraction. A sort of technological smokescreen, obscuring motives as old as time, greed, jealousy, revenge.
Precisely, Doctor. A novel weapon or a novel witness can easily misdirect if one isn't careful.
Exactly. The stage dressing changes, Watson. The tools evolve, but the play remains fundamentally human. Whether the instrument is a dagger, poison, or a complex automaton, the essential task is unchanged. To penetrate the facade, technological or otherwise, and discern the flawed, grasping human motive that inevitably lies beneath. That is the constant in our work.
You know, recounting the events surrounding Sir Reginald Harcourt and that contraption presented unique difficulties when I came to write the chronicle. How does one convey the sheer asterisk uncanniness of the mechanical manservant, its precise movements, its unsettling silence, without straying into the realms of pure fantasy, describing its capabilities accurately, yet in a manner that grips the reader rather than merely cataloguing gears and levers? That was the tightrope I had to walk.
And yet, Watson, the fundamental principles remain immutable. Whether one observes the twitch of a human eyelid or the meshing of metallic cogs, the imperative is precise observation followed by rigorous deduction. The nature of the subject, be it organic or mechanical, does not alter the necessity of gathering all the facts before formulating a theory. Sentiment and speculation have no place until the evidence is laid bare.
A commendable sentiment, Mr. Holmes, and one essential to your line of work. From Scotland Yard's perspective, however, the challenge differs somewhat. Dr. Watson crafts a narrative for public consumption, designed to engage and perhaps even thrill. My reports, particularly concerning something as unprecedented as Harcourt's automaton, had to withstand the intense scrutiny of superiors, forensic examiners, and potentially the Crown Court. There is little room for dramatic flair when documenting evidence that many would dismiss out of hand. Every detail regarding that machine had to be meticulously recorded, purely factual, devoid of the very uncanniness Dr. Watson sought to capture.
A fair point, Inspector. It highlights the curious relationship between what we see, how we interpret it, particularly when faced with the truly novel, and then how we choose to relate it. My interpretation needed to convey the mystery, while yours needed to build a case upon verifiable, if unconventional, facts.
Precisely. Observation provides the raw material, interpretation shapes it, and the final narrative, whether for the Strand magazine or the Old Bailey, depends utterly on the integrity of both preceding stages, especially when venturing into the unknown territory pioneered by men like Professor Fleming. Progress, Watson, is ever a double-edged sword. The ingenuity that birthed the mechanical manservant held such promise, yet simultaneously presented novel avenues for obfuscation and indeed malice. The more rapidly we innovate, the more critical foresight and ethical consideration become.
It certainly left a lasting impression, Holmes. More than many cases, it prompted unsettling questions about the path we are treading. What other wonders, or perhaps terrors, might emerge from the minds of men like Professor Fleming? The future felt suddenly less predictable.
And for those of us tasked with maintaining order, Doctor, the questions are intensely practical. How does the law adapt to technologies that outpace our statutes? How do we anticipate the misuse of inventions we barely comprehend? The Harcourt affair was a stark reminder that regulation invariably lags behind innovation, often leaving society vulnerable.
A complex tapestry indeed, Inspector. It seems the march of invention presents as many challenges to society as it does conveniences. Perhaps that is a conversation for another evening by this fireside. The hour grows late, and there are countless other chronicles yet slumbering in my notebooks.